listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
Yes, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Summers for St. Pete podcast. I'm Mhariel Summers, your humble and gracious candidate for St. Pete City Council District 6, here with my buddy, my captain, Jacob Terrell. How you doing?
Oh, another great Friday.
Another great Friday in the books. And we are joined this morning by a special guest. Everybody, go ahead, put your hands together for Reverend.
The Rev's in the house.
Rev's in the house. Reverend J.C. Pritchard, welcome to the Summers for St. Pete podcast. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
I'm glad to be here, Summers.
You gonna have to. They won't be able to hear. You gotta lean in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. A summer to remember. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. There you go. Got it out. But good to have you. So, for the folks who aren't familiar, Reverend Pritchard is the president of IMA, which is the acronym. I always gotta take a deep breath before I say it.
Say it all.
Interdenominational Ministerial Alliance
Of St. Petersburg.
Of St. Petersburg Incorporated.
Gotta get the whole name.
Oh yeah, it's a long one, but they do great work bringing together clergy from all different sects of faith, all different walks. So how's that organization coming, and what type of work are y'all doing?
Great season for us. We have relocated to the Deuces area. We had a ribbon cutting on last Thursday. We are excited about the businesses and the residents that are in the immediate area of our new space. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have high HIV/AIDS cases, that we have gun violence, that we have an increase in STDs, and that we have voter oppression on top of a global pandemic. And so the work of faith leaders does not take a break for the summer or anytime.
Yeah, I mean, how do we cope with all of these things all at once as a community? I mean, our faith leaders play I think they play a key role in keeping us like morally grounded, with reminding us about the things in life that we have to appreciate, look forward to. But I mean, what am I missing? Am I missing something on there? Like,
I think that the global pandemic made two things occur. It made lay people, or the members of parishioners realize that you do need your rabbi or your imam or your pastor or your minister.
Yeah.
But it also made us realize that we have to be more relevant and respond to these stories we've been hearing from the community, especially the young people.
Yeah.
Many of us have church vans that are not used 5 days out of 7.
Right.
Our buildings are not used 5 days out of 7.
Yeah.
We did not have social media presence, some of us. Our websites, our live streaming, our small group meetings, all these things that the pandemic exposed that are important for us to be effective, whether we're in healthy times or not.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the dual things that we saw come out of 2020, that we got to have our act together.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of, how do we meet the present time? Our needs are ever changing. They're only going to continue to grow. And so it was very, I guess, a unique time for all of us, and interesting to watch how the church adapted in its various sects.
Yeah, it's tough for Fortune 500 companies to keep up with these ever-changing advances. So again, some of these more cash-strapped, just local community, local churches.
Yeah,
it's tough. I can imagine.
Yeah, but Rev, you said something, and I want to ask about it. You said this pandemic is a time where folks realize that they did need their faith leaders. Yeah. And we were talking about it a little bit in prior episodes and before we started here. A lot of people in our generation, right, 30, 35 or younger, they're spiritual. You'll see folks who are spiritual, but they don't want to be religious. What do you think about that? Is it one and the same? I mean, does it matter?
This morning I had a conversation with a Jewish gentleman, and I brought up this topic that I've mentioned many times. Especially in our faith, the Christian faith, the early Acts church found people going from house to house, breaking bread, singing songs, praying, in caring for their neighbor,
Yeah.
reading sacred texts.
Yeah.
We have gotten so far from that.
Yeah.
And the millennials have told us that they want something that's authentic, something that's that they can touch, that's relevant, that is fast moving, that is rebellious. And the pandemic got our attention. We have to be that.
Right.
So the skateboard kids are going to hang together. The singles are going to hang together.
Right.
Couples are going to hang together. The elderly members are going to hang together. In these small groups, that is the early church.
Right.
So the early church was so just, first of all, they had government persecution.
Yeah.
They were fleeing for their lives.
Right.
They were rebellious. They were creative.
Good
they
trouble.
Were innovators.
Good trouble.
Exactly. Good trouble.
Yeah.
And that's what the church has to do now.
Right.
And so even now, we're getting ready to go into August. These cases are going up.
Right.
And what people are saying about their understanding of getting vaccinated means that we may be looking at going into another season of lockdown,
Yeah.
shutdown.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Because the numbers are rising.
Exactly. The Delta variant.
The Delta variant. We've been, seeing cases where people who are vaccinated are passing away.
Yeah. Florida's the leading state I believe, in the country right now.
Yeah, and we're skyrocketing. So,
and that's it. We're number one in new cases, and gun violence, and HIV/AIDS cases, and STDs, and food lines, and unemployment, and housing.
Really?
And the faith community is supposed to be silent.
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, logically, it doesn't make sense to someone just who was not a faith person.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And again, as our elders have said for years, we can't talk about going to heaven, walking the streets of gold with a white robe on, and our people are dying and suffering while we are silent.
We're missing. You're missing parts of. You're missing the full story if you're taking it that route. So what I'm hearing from you is, establishing legitimacy in religion by, sticking true to some of the original, principles and some of the original approaches to bringing community together will do a lot to restore people's, faith in religion. Because I'm a young religious person. I go to Mount Zion Progressive. Pastor Murphy is my pastor, and I'm a Christian. I wear it on my sleeve, and our church being as large as it is, there's so many more people out here in my age demographic that could be in somebody's church. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, how do we? Because when I look at the '60s, right? And I always use the '60s because that's like pre-integration, right? When I look at the '60s, you had key pillars that were foundational in the Black community, and we were the lowest income communities, probably the lowest markets back then, right? But our communities were much more safer. We had much more structure in the operation that families grew, and so you had some people come from these segregated conditions and still just be able to bloom into amazing people. And so a big part of that was the church was filled every Sunday. The church, how did we end up with the church on every corner in our community? It's because it used to be such a key part of our organization, our structure, to fill in these gaps that you're talking about that exist. And so I still have a lot of faith that the church still has a lot of answers for the modern times. But it's going to take faith leaders to be bold about it and think about it. So you also mentioned HIV, which is another thing that is on the rise seemingly. How in these times it's so polarizing, right? How do we speak to STDs and things of that nature in the realm of a faith leader?
Again, from my background, you're talking about a Jesus who, when he saw people hungry, said, "We're not going to move on to the next gig. Let's feed them."
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, I always talk about the parable of the strangers. That the stranger who is passed by several times until the Samaritan stops. But so now you're talking about
the Levite passed him.
Exactly.
And
priest.
the priest passed him as well.
So we talk about whatever faith we're from, is it a part of our core foundational beliefs that when you see people hungry,
Right.
you don't give them bread?
Yeah.
Or when they're thirsty, you don't give them drink?
Yeah.
Or when they're in prison or in a nursing home in the hospital, you don't visit or send flowers or a card?
Right.
What faith is that?
Right.
What faith is it that would see people being infected with STDs and not respond with a solution to it?
Yeah.
I don't know what faith that is. I don't want to be a part of that faith.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that when you are practical and responsible, you come up with solutions.
Yeah.
But what we've done in the past is we have covered being practical and responsible with a lot of language and traditions and trappings and smoke and incense and stuff.
Yeah.
So instead of being real and
Which is hard work. That's the hard work.
we put up this redlining essentially.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Let me say this. It's easy. You know, our organization, when I took over in November 2018, was African American clergy. So if you just want to deal with African American clergy, many of us, including my denomination, National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated, has been slow to accept women clergy. So now you add that we're talking about adding Muslims, Jews, whites, and gays.
Right.
Because I clearly believe that in order for us to have an effective strategy to attack some of these things, we need to be broad in our relationships and our coalitions.
Yeah.
But we have to if
you
you're
have to.
living by the book.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that kind of draws me to Christianity, is this complete, understanding of human value and human personality that Jesus had. It's not a matter of, are you my tribe? Are you my
Right.
culture?
Exactly.
Are you my sexuality?
Yeah.
It's you are a human being, and are you suffering? Are you in need? Are you in pain? And how can I help? So I think that kind of broad lens does get mixed up, and it doesn't even allow the right perspectives to hit the conversation.
It's easy to do the tribe gang.
Exactly.
But
Especially now.
So you're talking about Jesus with some fishermen. You're talking about Jesus with a couple of brothers. You're talking about Jesus with a bunch of women following and involved. You're talking about the two Mary and Martha. You're talking about traveling in a region together.
Right.
I've done this before. Even if you talk about the intimacy of Jesus, you talk about a Jesus that is so secure in his masculinity that there's a scripture that tells us that he's relaxing one day and John is laying in his lap. The same John who's at the cross, and Jesus tells him as he's dying, make sure you take care of my mother.
Right.
That Jesus is still looking out for widows and orphan and the oppressed as he's dying. He tells John, take care of my mother. This is the same Jesus who one of the women takes ointment and perfume and use it to massage his feet. So with her hair even.
Yeah.
And so what I hate about fundamentalists is that they're fundamental.
Yeah.
That they take the most basic approach to things without thinking, without logic, without the intellect that God gives us.
So the overlap with politics is blinding. You know what I mean? It's so real. It's blinding because we deal with that in our fields, right? You have folks who take something as blank as our Constitution, right? Something as pure and simple to, because the Bible is thick. It's been translated several times, but here we have our own U.S. Constitution, and you have folks who are trying to interpret it. The tradition. Our own governor says he's views it from a traditional view, right? Which means from the lens of the people who wrote it, which are all white,
Exactly. Yeah.
property owning
Exactly. Yeah.
men. Yes. And so the big problem I think that we can take away from both of these is how do we, and what advice do you have for people who are trying to kind of misrepresent truth or misrepresent something that is good, right? Something that is noble or honorable or meant for the greatest good. No matter politics, religion, business, it seems that you always have these I mean, what do you think, Jacob? You've been
Yeah, because again, we've kind of talked about it, but like, the whole religion in politics aspect, I feel like it's unfortunately gotten co-opted by the right.
Yeah.
So like literally
Yeah.
religion equates to being a Republican.
Right.
Unfortunately in this time. And that is not true. 100, like through and through,
Yeah.
like that is not true. So again, like what you were kind of talking about to a degree, we need to start breaking bread a little bit more. Like, I don't know, the bipartisanship aspect, whatever it may be. But I just like what you're touching on too about because I've had this conversation with my father. Like, I was raised Roman Catholic, the works. And, I was an altar boy. Like, I did it
you
all.
talked about that.
Exactly. I've done it all, man. I did it all. So just, this whole aspect of like, oh, Jesus. And, it's like Jesus at the end of the day would have been out there helping the people who needed it the most.
Right.
The people, the destitute, the poor, this, that, and the other. Like when people were up in arms about the immigrants coming over, from Mexico and Honduras and places like that. It's like, would Jesus be out there building a wall, or would he be out there carrying little kids and helping them and giving them food and like helping them across the border?
Exactly.
And again, that's where that like a lot of the message gets, especially with the politics aspect.
That's what got that man crucified.
Yeah.
Well,
in honest truth, like
we read in the sacred text, especially the Old Testament, wicked and wickedness a lot.
Yeah.
And as a kid and as growing up, we don't know what that means. But when you see a baby drowning in water because they tried to cross over to freedom, and you're unmoved, that's called wickedness.
Exactly.
When you know that your state would benefit from, well, you can go through the money that the Obama administration tried to get us for the train. You can get us through the money that federals have tried to give us for Medicare expansion. And, I mean, that's wickedness.
Exactly.
Have you seen in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell State, when they come in and they do free dental work or free physicals, there are lines of people, white folks, trying to get their teeth fixed, trying to get health care. That's wickedness. And so something that you said, Summers, that crosses over. And again, our Black Sexuality Conference begins tonight at 6 on Power Plug Radio and Facebook
Power
Live.
Plug Radio tonight, 6.
But back to the Constitution and about being a fundamentalist and not being a thinker. The people who told us that the black bodies were ugly and not beautiful, and that we were half humans, and the deal was made in order to get partial recognition for voting. Those are the same men who got on top of our black sisters and enjoyed them and had babies and created generations.
Created a whole mulatto race of people.
One of the gentlemen took his lover to France with him, and she was the star of France with her beautiful light skin, as he wrote. That's what we're talking about. And so when white folks don't want to do critical race theory, that means they don't want to deal with the lie. And James Baldwin always talks about the lie and the truth. That these white folks are so crazy and want us to be so crazy to believe that all of these state and county supervisor elections got together, and they finagled this vote in this election, and that Trump won. And guess what? August, Trump is coming back, and Biden will be replaced.
Right? Yeah, that's the big conspiracy right now.
Let me say this: that they want us to believe that these tourists were in D.C. on January 6th.
Right.
Oh, okay. So we were talking about that, because these trials are starting, Rev, and I'm really glad you kind of segued into that, because here we are. One of the biggest things that I hate is the people who have already been kind of prosecuted, and they aren't charging them with the right crimes.
No.
Like, I'm like, how did they get this
6-month sentence, 7 month, like small little like breaking and entering.
Breaking and entering, disturbing a conference. I'm like, where's the treason charge?
Right.
Like, where's the terrorist charge? Because had it been Black Lives Matter,
that's why.
Exactly.
Again, this is why these things tied together. Black bodies, lynching, black intimacy, black sexuality are the worth of our black bodies. So this, and this is one of the things that Mr. Trump said to authors of a book that came out recently. He said his only regret was that he could not get the military to crack down on those protesters in D.C. when he walked across the street and held the Bible upside down. That if this was black folks and brown folks pushing police, kicking police, I mean, the guns would have just come out.
Oh yeah.
With a vast support from the American General Society as well. You know what I mean? And that's where I always become politically like aware. Like every class we've ever taken together, that's where I'm always trying to like raise the race question. Is because why is this so coincidental?
Let's talk about it.
Why is it so coincidental?
White folks can storm the capital of the United States of America
and get 8 months in jail.
Yeah.
And a fine.
Get not shot, not completely taken down by the, like you said, the military.
Right.
Like
go home that day.
Go home that day.
No, go to their hotels.
Exactly.
Yeah, turn themselves in.
Exactly. Like
then,
that is the mind. Because again, any other race, religion, credo. Because like even if it was like some sort of religious aspect, too,
Yeah.
You know, like if there would have been like
Muslim folks,
exactly,
or
that's
if
exactly
it
where I
would
was
have
gonna
been
go.
Asian minorities. But here's the Florida contradiction to this. We have House Bill 1 here in the state, and so on a kind of state geographical lens, we're looking at these Cuban protests spark up and directly defy the rules of House Bill 1.
Yeah.
With almost no enforcement.
Yeah.
And this is in South Florida. It's here in Central Florida. Definitely, they blocked off Del Mabry and Tampa earlier this month. And so, as we're looking at other races, you know what I mean. It's unfortunate that it's black and brown that are, that are out of bounds. Because if you're Cuban.
Exactly. They have the law in place, and then they're going to enforce it when they deem it necessary.
When they deem it necessary. And that's what kind of bothers me.
Let me say why I believe in something bigger than us, because look at how I believe a creator kind of manipulates activities from above. So it would have been a big lie, an additional lie we would have been tricked. But instead, Haiti also is in crisis. So what they decided to do, instead of having to make a decision about Haiti or Cuba, they said, listen, nobody comes here from Haiti or Cuba for freedom, from relief. In the past, Florida has had a history of the Cubans' feet touching dry ground because of the politics of Cubans in the South Florida, but not Haitians.
Gosh, I forget.
Elian Gonzalez.
Gosh, I was like, what was his name? I was a little kid. But that is a trivia question.
Exactly.
But that is why, though. Elian Gonzalez is why this whole once your feet touches this U.S. soil that you're kind of welcomed into the fold.
Or you could do something else. You could supply them with medicine, in money, in food, in the internet, in free radio, and liberties to help those two small countries advance, or you can let corruption continue, and violence continue, and poverty continue.
Yeah,
I mean, so
well, it's a real complicated issue. I do want to just, if you are just now tuning in, this is the Summers for St. Pete podcast, and we are having some great conversations as always. Jacob Terrell here with Reverend J.C. Pritchard. And we have just kind of been snaking this conversation, and now we are at this point of kind of talking about, why does it's very contradictory kind of how our nation will operate and allow for certain crimes to exist, for certain situations of poverty to persist, and what's that all about? So you have to, the answer to me when we talk about Haiti and things of that nature, developing nations, we can't be blind to how those countries operate. So I watched this piece, right? And the UN and a lot of these countries is kind of like over flooding them with like rice, right? But it's like rice was a way that a lot of those farmers, because they're kind of like agricultural societies, rice and corn is how they kind of made a living. Yeah. And so the UN and nonprofit organizations are going into these. I used rice and corn as an example.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, just think about it. They're donating things that are depleting the natural market from existing. And when I think about it on a finite level of what we have here in St. Petersburg, when I talk about my platform and visible equity, I think that's a big problem we have here in our community. If you can kind of think about it from that lens, instead of allowing the natural market to exist and grow and fostering and water, we have these donations, these handouts that are handicapping the natural,
the potential
natural
growth.
Yeah,
the potential.
I know it's
yeah.
like left field from what we were just talking about. But
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the way that the world is operating, y'all, and the things that we're talking about are happening at the state level, at the city level, but on an international level, we can see Black and brown people we have an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether we don't live in this country, whether we live West Coast, East Coast, right, or North Side, South Side, St. Pete, it's an uphill battle. So I'm just kind of digesting all of that stuff and thinking about it.
If I could touch on this in connection with what you said, is that, I told you it's difficult when you bring different personalities together to try to do this work. It's hard work.
Yeah.
And so an example of that was, yesterday faith leaders gathered and we endorsed a candidate for mayor. We didn't say our church's name. We gathered as faith leaders.
Yeah.
Now, some white folks tried to tell me what the IRS says about that. Which,
Right.
I know what IRS says about it. And the last administration opened up many of these ways to continue for faith communities to be involved in elections.
Right. Yeah.
But if you want to go back to Reagan, Falwell, Pat Robertson, these white folks have always used their. They have literally told you how to vote from the pulpit. And so
the white Citizens Council.
So then when you tell black folks, well, don't you all mess with that IRS? What you're doing is you're suppressing the vote.
Yeah.
This is what happened in Georgia during Senator Warnock's race.
Okay.
They told black pastors, do not use your vans to take people to vote, souls to the poll, because you're going to lose your tax status.
Yeah.
If you don't have the intellect or the information or someone to tell you that's not true,
Exactly.
then that's voter suppression.
Exactly.
And so
Scare tactics.
I got someone who's supposed to be an ally telling me we should not be out there as black pastors and faith leaders saying, while we have trop redevelopment going on and gun violence and these health issues that I brought up, that the faith leaders should be quiet.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that you deal with when you don't have an awareness of what it is that we fight for as faith leaders, especially faith leaders of color in this community.
Well,
so something. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just want to comment here because it reminds me of something Martin Luther King says in one of his sermons. Look it up, y'all. It's called Guidelines for a Constructive Church. Guidelines for a Constructive Church, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But he says, in substance, we have two types of churches in the black community. And he says one of them freezes and the other one burns up, right? And so he says with the one that freezes, you kind of have this status thing, and they don't want to sing hymns that are too close to slavery, and they got doctors and lawyers and preachers, and he said the pastor preaches a nice little lecture on Sunday, and it's all put together. But they forget the real work, like you're talking about. And he says the other one burns up, and it's like they have a. You got to listen to it, but in substance, he says, the people, they leave from church and they say, man, this man preached today, and it's like, what did he preach about?
Exactly.
I don't know, but he sure preached.
Man.
He sure preached.
I felt it in my bones.
I felt exactly, and so I think about that sermon when I hear what it is that you're saying, is that the church has a greater responsibility. The church is dealing with man's ultimate concerns, which are these terrestrial questions, you know what I mean? And we have to be able to be bold in this moment and not find our comfort zones and not turn a blind eye. It's not.
Summers, something you mentioned about using our natural resources, I just want to touch on for St. Petersburg. We have two natural resources that we have to use and we have not used before in St. Petersburg. We have sun, we have sand, we have water. This community has never allowed black folks to be a part of tourism and hospitality, which is money. Millions of
working.
dollars. We just got black folks in the ads for Visit St. Pete Clearwater. One of the ads features my friend now from Green Beach Brewery, which is another story.
Yeah.
But my point is that you have people coming from all over the world to Florida, and particularly St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And how much money black folks getting?
But look, Rev, this is key part of my platform, right? we have this new Bright Line transit thing right here, and the only benefit that I've heard that the black community would get from it is the opportunity to get to your job faster, right? That's it. That's the only. And so what I'm saying is this moment is so ripe. It's why I'm running for this seat. It's why I think it's super important that this district and this city has these types of visionaries as we look to plan the city. You know, we need an African American history museum that mirrors some of the grandeur of the other museums here because of tourism. We need investment in our black business owners and in our own communities. We need to grow these entrepreneurs because of tourism. There's a certain culture and a certain experience that folks look to enjoy in black communities. And I know we enjoy it when we go to New Orleans. We enjoy it when we go to Philadelphia, when we go to Harlem, when we go to Chicago. It's not all gang-ridden. There's a lot of phenomenal black culture that exists. Atlanta, you know, definitely. And so, sorry. Oh yeah, no, we are. I'm sorry. But I'll just kind of wrap it up by saying there's no reason why, especially with how dense we are in this city and how the sun, the beach, you know, the sand, the water, it's right here in this dense black community. There's no reason why this shouldn't be another jewel in St. Pete's. Crown and Jewels is a blooming economic sphere of tourism in the black community. I mean, it would just be the icing on the cake for this city, and I'm selling it. I'm selling it all summer. Summer's for St. Pete. So, Rev, do you have any final thoughts? I want to take a little 5-minute break here and get you out. I kept him longer than I said I would. Thank you for joining us today. Can we clap it up for his insight and his knowledge?
I can't hear that good. Thank you, Summers. Remember tonight, Power Plug Radio and Facebook Live, our Black Sexuality Conference celebrating Black intimacy. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us, folks. This is the Summers for St. Pete podcast. I'm Mhariel Summers. I'm running for City Council, and we are here to talk about any and everything. So Jacob and I will take a little hiatus. We'll let Rev get out of here, and we'll come back and finish this hour out with some good political jargon.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You're listening to Power Plug Radio. Home of your throwback jams.
All right, and we're back. We're back. All right. So, hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone.
I know Rev was here, and we wanted to get him as much time as we could.
Yeah,
So.
it was a good conversation. We were definitely left, right, up, down. We covered a little bit of everything. It was nice.
Yeah. It was around the spectrum, maybe politically charged. But, you know, religion is one of those things that's always going to be politically charged.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I like to think that that my faith is important enough to not shy away from those conversations.
Oh, yeah. Got to be able to have the difficult discussions, you know? Like you said, the sexuality conversation they're having here on Power Plug tonight.
Yeah.
Like, you know, some of these tough ones. It's like, look, religion, politics, sex, it's not easy, people.
I have people, you know, so first of all, you know, I have people who will call me out because I kind of sit at a cross section of being, you know, lesbian as well as being black. And, you know, it's unfortunate when your identity is kind of dissected and parts of you are excluded, other parts of you are uplifted for people's personal, you know,
Just exactly,
or whatever.
Exactly.
But, nonetheless, man, it's a cape that I'm proud to wear, you know, and I think religion is what kind of keeps me centered and grounded.
Well, the reason people do that too is because they're scared as hell of you, Mhariel. Are you kidding me? Like, it's not just like, oh, you're rocking it or flaunting it or like in people's face about it. It's that like people can see it. That again, it's what we've talked about, the authenticity. Yeah, like you're authentic, you are real as hell, and that scares a lot of people.
I guess so, man. I guess so. So,
like the little Nas X shit that's going on right now. You heard it.
Frightening.
Like,
it's folks get frightened.
People get scared when they're just
forced with stuff.
Exactly.
Like I heard a quote
unabashedly themselves.
So okay, quick recap of the week. And this is gonna end with fireworks at the end. So I went to the Healing While Black summit. I went to a few of those events last week.
That's why we weren't here last week, by the way, guys.
Why we weren't here last Friday. The Healing While Black summit was in town, led by the Well for Life, which is a mental health. I don't even want to call it a mental health organization because I feel like it's so much more than that.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the well for it's really everything that we need for
it's like businesses and communities and people, and it's like it's an all-encompassing type of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's deep in terms of like healing what needs to be healed. Black trauma wise. So it's led by Dr. LaDonna Butler. And if you live in St. Pete and you're a black person who doesn't think that there are black mental health professionals in our community, let me be the first to tell you that there's the Well for Life. There are others, but that's my favorite. But I'll plug that by saying, you know, had a great time there. Did a lot of door knocking this week. Nice. We're getting in touch with voters at their doors. Finishing up some questionnaires, but the grandest news of the week is we picked up a major endorsement.
Big boy.
The Stonewall Democrats.
The big boy.
Voted to endorse Mhariel Summers as your candidate for District 6.
We get around. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, that's good sound.
So Stonewall.
Check them out. They're a great little local organization.
Yeah, and if you don't know the history, Stonewall riots are really what kind of were the catalyst for LGBTQ plus rights to start taking priority in legislative halls. And it was led by Marsha P. Johnson is one of the names that always comes out of Stonewall.
Because, it came out of New York City in I believe the early 70s, like 1970, 71, something like that. Yeah. So.
And these were actually, you know, transgender, you know, women who were actually out here standing on the forefront. So when we talk about when Pritchard talks about the rising rate of, you know, STDs and HIV and things that really ravage the gay community, you know, we have to not ignore that as some type of gay agenda or, you know, all of these homophobic fear feelings that instantly come up.
Especially in this new age. The younger generations are extremely fluid with a lot of this. Exactly. Like, not only in genders and lifestyles, but like sexuality. Like, it's just, anything. Like, let's just go for it, man.
And
So,
it's that person's business, right?
Exactly, 110%.
As long as we're following the laws of, that are in the books, let
Right,
folks live their
exactly.
life and be concerned about their health and their well-being.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, health, well-being. Like, do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. But, like,
be concerned with folks' health and,
Exactly.
and well-being. So yeah, Stonewall. I don't know how we get to health and well-being. And,
Right, yeah.
and I love Fridays.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all over the place, people. Gotta love it.
But Stonewall is, that's where they get their name from, and one of our local organizations that's been around for so long here, uplifting the rights of our local LGBTQ residents. So I'm honored to have their endorsement, and I didn't just get it because I'm gay. I got it, because they think I have a well-rounded vision of what equity looks like for all residents.
Because this isn't just some blanket rubber stamped like, well, she's a lesbian, so she's in.
She's got it.
Like, yeah,
because
she's
look,
just
I didn't get Equality Florida's.
Exactly.
They happened to endorse my opponent far before I got into the race.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's not just this guarantee that you're going to, get it because you're a part of this community.
Yeah, these endorsements are vetted. I mean, these
I'm doing
organizations.
interviews all the time, folks.
Questionnaires. Like, it's
and folks want to know about my ideology when it comes to the issues that are plaguing the citizens of St. Pete, not my identity.
so again, like, let this be known. This is not some rubber stamp. Like, oh, she just snatched that up.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah, and that's the beauty in our campaign is from the gate, this has never been an identity sculpted campaign. We never put this team together and embarked on this journey for the fact that I'm black.
Right, exactly.
Or the fact that I'm gay. We're political science majors. It's for the fact of like freedom and democracy for all.
Exactly.
And ensuring that a lot of this ignoring of people's who are most vulnerable, like Rev was kind of talking about, doesn't go unchallenged in our democracy. We have to have people who are able to stand in the gap for those who don't have time to follow all the government procedures.
Exactly.
Know about state level, federal.
Exactly.
And all of these things.
Because that kind of goes into what, because I know we're running out of time.
Few minutes, but that's what I was
rapid
gonna say.
fire. Like, this goes into the moratorium. Unfortunately, that is set to expire, I believe, this weekend on Saturday.
Exactly.
I read the article.
How many people?
There's 5,000 homes between Hillsborough County and Pinellas County, like by Saturday. Like 5,000 homes literally like on the docket. That's not overall. That's not like the total number. That's literally like the first wave.
That's the
of people that are like
those
literally
are
about
people
to
who have been
48 hours.
Probably on the docket. Those are people who have probably been on the docket the entire moratorium.
Exactly. Like, so they're the initial wave, roughly 5,000 homes between the two counties, and we're talking 48 hours.
And here's the thing, folks.
If it goes through, again, because like Biden is definitely talking about extending it
at the
like,
federal level, and
it is up to local leaders as well. Like, how much of, pardon the French, but assholes are we going to be by sending out our sheriff's department to kick people out in the middle of a Delta variant rise in coronavirus case? Like, I mean, it's just.
But see, okay, so
mind-boggling.
two things arise from that for me, right? Is thing number one, we have these American Rescue Plan dollars coming.
Yeah.
And I went to and tuned into the presentations that the city gave this past week about how that money could be spent, and a big thing that I did not see is any relief for those people.
Yeah.
And this money, it has no strings attached. We can spend it how we'd like to spend it. But the city kind of already has these predetermined categories in which they plan to, and they had these, department heads and the chiefs and everyone explain how they would use the money, when, real leadership is not going into the public with your okay. So it's
Break it down for me. Break it down for me. I love it.
I don't got the time. And I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I'm just saying that we have to find ways to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
5,000 people are facing immediate eviction.
Yeah. I believe Saturday.
Everybody doesn't get a press conference outside of their properties to force them into recanting those evictions.
Exactly.
Like some of our council members,
Exactly.
have had to do.
Yeah.
The St. Pete Tenants Union.
That was another big story this week. Yeah.
They don't have the capacity to go to every property and get the news media and hold press conferences to prevent these vulnerable evictions. Where is our accountability in the public sector for the most vulnerable?
Goes into what the Reverend Goodlord was talking about earlier. Wickedness, man.
That's why
talking about that wickedness.
Look. But that's why I love having Rev on and the realness that he talked about. The early fervent Christian beliefs, and it's just a love.
Yeah, because I don't care if you are Republican, black, white, red, pink, like kicking people out of their homes, evictions in the middle of all this. It's
not right.
I am going to use that for a while now. That's wicked. Call it what it is. It's
not right. So how do we work with property owners, right? How do we work with these people who are owning these multi-family units and locations? How do we mitigate the problem? If the problem isn't directly giving the money to the tenants so that they can pay their bills or helping them clear their balances, how do we, in a responsible economic way, meet the need? We got $45 million coming. How do we responsibly meet? But nobody's talking about it. Yeah. Nobody's even talking about it.
Because I feel for the people being evicted, but at the same time, only a very small portion of me. But it's like there is still that aspect of across the country, there are plenty of landlords not trying to be, rude or I need you out by tomorrow type stuff. But it's like that is also their livelihood.
That's their livelihood.
I own 10 homes. That's it. This is how I make my entire money. Yes. And I don't want to put anyone out. Yes. I don't want this to happen. But at the same time, I'm also in dire straits now.
I know we're out of time. But that's why I wanted to uplift that before we got out of here, because we must always be thinking about our economy in the full circle of things as we look to help the most vulnerable in our society and stand in those gaps. We can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. So this is the Summers for St. Pete podcast. I hear the music coming in. Showtime at the Apollo style.
Right, yeah.
It's time to get all Sandman is saying we're done.
Next week we'll hit January 6th stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it. So please join us, Summers for St. Pete podcast, Power Plug Radio. Tune in tonight, 6 p.m.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.